I guess we are live. Hi everyone. Welcome to the very first Flutter Virtual Meetup. I'm very excited to have you all here, and I'm very glad that after a long time I will be interacting with you and sharing my knowledge with you. It's a shame that we couldn't organize this meetup at our regular office premises, but I hope you have a decent uh, virtual virtual meetup experience. And just give me a minute. I think the echo is there. Just give. So let me introduce myself. I am Gaurav Porwal, engineering manager at GeekyAnts. My I love building applications with cutting edge technologies like Flutter, React, React Native. My Twitter handle looks like Gaurav PRWL14. You guys can follow me there. Let me talk about a little bit about GeekyAnts, who we are and what we do. So we are a product studio company where we build mobile application, web application, and everything in and around them. Like the developers in here loves building end-to-end application with high quality in mind. We are into both services and product. Like of the we have almost like 70% of our workforce into services who works with the client and their client projects, and rest 30% works on building some cool products like BuilderX and do R&D on new tech stacks or new frameworks which the community is building on. We also explore different domains so that we get to gain knowledge from every aspects of the industry. So far, we had delivered around 300 plus products and served 200 plus clients across the globe. So I can clearly say that we have good domain knowledge in developing the web and mobile application. Talking about our clients, like we have worked with big giants like Google, SLR, which is a lens manufacturing company. We have also developed a e-commerce app for the Noon company. We closely work with ABB to build their web dashboards. We have also worked with MPL. I guess MPL, you guys must be knowing the it's a platform where anybody can play games and earn money. So we have worked with them and developed the application for them. And there are many more clients, but since I don't want to brag much about it, so moving forward. So next is let's talk about the meetups. Like we are very active in the community. We frequently organize the meetups and conferences, not just in Flutter, but also in different technologies like React, React Native. Recently, we have started with a new group called Flutter for, React for Business, where we try to get insights and discuss more about the business oriented stuff and how a technology is helping a business growing. We are not just limited to the local meetups. Like we also organizes international conferences. We sponsors the international conferences, attend them whenever we got the opportunities. Also, whenever we get opportunity, we try to share our knowledge and insights about the technology with the world by talking on those conferences. Like recently, Saket Sahu, the CEO of our organization, has given a talk on React Europe 2020, where he discussed and shared his knowledge how what all challenges he faced while building a BuilderX and how he evolved the architecture over the period of time. We also organized a Flutter Interact viewing party last year in collaboration with GDG Bangalore, where it was a fun event where the developer across the community came to our office premises and viewed the talks which were happening in the Flutter Interact, and it was more kind of jamming and fun event where we discussed about the talks which were happening in the Flutter community. and also at the same time enjoyed ourselves. Next is like we also work on like organizing different hackathons, so that the we keep in touch with the community and help them, give them an opportunity to share their ideas across the community. And if the products are, if their ideas have anything strength, so that community can help them and grow their idea into a full-fledged product. So we regularly organize these hackathons, and also not just hackathon. In recently, we have organized small animation challenge in our organization, where the developer can showcase their skills and their ideas and their creativity into an animation. So this kind of events help us keep in touch with the community and also keep our skills sharpened. Now let's talk about like GeekyAnts Flutter. Like GeekyAnts has adopted Flutter at the very initial stage, when I think when Flutter was at the alpha stage. So we've been experimenting with Flutter since a long time, and we have seen how Flutter has evolved over the period of time. Like how Flutter has given more developer experience, how it has eased the developer experience and help in delivering the quality products to the end users. I can imagine like how the Flutter from like few developers per month, it has grown to few millions active developers per month. So you can imagine the strength and the potential of the Flutter. We have also collaborated with Google on writing the official documentation for the Flutter. We have written a small part of it, like we showed how we wrote about how a React Native developer can easily transition to Flutter. So if you are from a React Native background, so you can read that article and get started with Flutter. We also have the Flutter market in place, like we sell premium themes, premium apps, a complex and a ready-to-use application which are built using Flutter as a tech stack. This platform helps the business owners to uh, ease them and focus them more on the uh, business side of the area, rather than bootstrapping the application from the scratch. So here you can go and get the ready to use application and just modify something, and you can build your application and get into a production ready in few hours. Um Experiment, I think, is the core value of GeekyAnts. Like how the GeekyAnts also evolved is through experiments only. So we really pay a lot of attention on experiments. Like we've been exploring Flutter for quite a some time, and we have explored not just the typical web application, mobile application, but different domains like gaming and animations, and creating small widgets which can be used by any of the community members. So as you can see, we had developed a typical Galaxy 2D game, which I think I used to play in my when I was a teenager. We have also developed Snakes and Ladder game, which is built using Flutter Web, which is a tremendous thing because Flutter Web is still in beta version, but it has lot of potential. And you can see with that game, we can build different applications as well using Flutter Web. We also have invested time, experimented with animations, so that we can give a better user experience to the end customers. So these snippets and these widgets, we generally do open source contribution, so that anybody around the community can use them in their projects. Um, in Flutter, we don't just focus on the mobile application development. We also focus on the Flutter Web, which is still in beta version, but we are experimenting it and we are finding it a great potential for the future, because Flutter Web gives you the strength and the power. With one source code, you can build cross-platform application. Like you don't have to write one code for a particular platform. Let's say for mobile application, you are writing in one code, one particular language, and for desktop again you are writing in one particular language. So Flutter Web tries to solve that problem, and it with one source code you can deploy to different platforms, and it is very easy to integrate. And as you can see, we have developed a Hummingbird dashboard where we try to showcase the different typical use cases of the dashboard, like a chart, bar graph, typical login form, and tables. So it's a good open source project. You guys can check it out on our GeekyAnts GitHub repo to get more insight about the Flutter Web. Now let's talk about what's happening in and around the Flutter community. Like Flutter community is one of the most proactive community around the globe. Like every few days there's a releases, and every few days there's some new package or new widgets coming into the picture, and the community is so proactive that from few developers in for past 2 years it has grown to 500,000 the active developers. So you can imagine how powerful the Flutter community is. I just want to share some of the current trends, which were current announcement and news around the Flutter community. So first of all is like big news, like Flutter recently released its 1.17 version and Dart 2.8 version. It is a tremendous boost for the community and for the application, because this release mostly focused on the performance. Like according to the Flutter release note, they have tried to boost the rendering performance up to 50%. So you can imagine like how powerful, how much optimization they have done under the hood, and how easily we can build complex application now. And I think I will be upgrading all my applications to the latest version. But with every version, every release, there's also a trade-off which comes in. Like there are few breaking changes, so I would recommend before upgrading, please read the release notes. Next up is Adobe. Adobe recently announced its Flutter plugin support. Like it is the coolest thing which Adobe has done so far. Like you can design your thing in the Adobe XD software, and on click of one button you can get the source code out of it without any hassle, and you can use those source code into your application directly. So imagine like you have a prototype in your mind, and but you don't have the skill set to develop an application, but Adobe does this thing for you. You design it, click on the export button, and you will have the source code ready for you. So, but still, I feel the Adobe XD plugin, this Flutter plugin, has to evolve, and they still need to do a lot of work around it, because it right now doesn't give you responsive designs, which we typically needed for a Flutter mobile app to be working across different devices. So there's still a long way to go, but it's a cool plugin which everybody should try it out. Next is the CodePen. Recently, like I think couple of months back, announced the support for the Flutter on their platform. So now you can write the snippets on the line and share those snippets across your friends, your community members, or you can even save them, or you can show if you have any prototype which you have in mind, you can directly build it on the CodePen CodePen and share it across your boss and anybody, so that you don't have to again share the APK. So that tedious job has been removed by CodePen. I know the Dart pen is still there for the Flutter, but Dart pen mostly focuses on the Flutter, but the CodePen gives you more languages support, like the JavaScript, HTML, CSS. So I hope you will try this plugin, the pens at the CodePen tool. Next is recently the Roddy Davis released a package called Storyboard package. What this package does is like it gives you a good view where you can show all your screens at one place with a storyboard in a storyboard layout, like a typical what you have in the XD, and you can debug it. So you don't have to navigate from one screen to another. You can see all your screens at one place and debug it simultaneously. So it has eased out the debugging process for you guys. So I hope you guys will check it out. Now let's talk about today's agenda. Today, mostly the talks are about the architecture stuffs and how the Flutter Web evolved uh, around the period of time over the period of time. So the first talk will be given by Mayur. Like he will be talking about three moonshots layering foundation for the Flutter. So his talk is more about like how the evolution of the Flutter has happened, how does it came into picture, how does it came into existence. So it's more about the detailing or and history about the Flutter. Next is Vikrant. Vikrant will be giving you more insight of the Flutter Web. How does internally it works? What are the different architectures which Flutter Web supports? After that, Gayathri will be demonstrating you the progressive web app. This is one of the coolest thing. The Flutter Web supports like PWA out of the box. So PWA is something like most of the companies are wanting because PWA helps you give you offline support. Plus, it's a lightweight. So it's an interesting talk. You should everyone. I am very curious about it. And last but not the least, Hasnen will be talking about the VelocityX, the flexible way for fluttering. It's a typically. I'm very curious about this thing and wanted to know how does this velocity helps me in building the UI element. So his talks will be around how you can use VelocityX to ease the development process of your UI elements instead of wrapping it around the complex wrapping of widgets over the one another. It gives you more of a declarative way. So I'm looking forward for this talk. So now let's kick off this meetup for today, and you guys can tweet about the meetup, share the details with your friends and families and colleagues, and share across the globe. You can use the Twitter. You can use a Twitter. You can use a tag as FlutterBLR, or you can connect to us using @FlutterBLR. Also, please note that after every talk, there will be a Q&A session for 5 to 10 minutes. So you guys can post your question in the YouTube channel, and we will be monitoring those comment section, and hopefully the speakers will be able to give you more insights and give you more knowledge about your queries. So without any further delay, now I would like to invite Mayur, the first speaker of the day, who will be giving talk about three moonshots, layering the uh, foundation of Flutter. So over to you, Mayur. You can share your screen and get started with it.
Yeah. Um, Thanks, Gaurav. Thanks for inviting me for this meetup. And hi, everyone. Thanks to GeekyAnts for organizing this FlutterBLR. And GeekyAnts team has been doing such a great work. Like, I follow many of their blogs and their GitHub projects whenever I face some hurdle. So this is Mayur. I am co-founder and CTO at iMums app. We build a pregnancy app called iMums, where we help pregnant women follow a holistic lifestyle. And our app is built using Flutter Firebase. So that's about me. Today I'm going to talk about a little bit of how Flutter came to be where it is today. So we recently have seen from the Tim Sneath, who is the group product manager of Flutter and Dart, saying that they want Flutter to be an ambient computing platform. Flutter. So what are the moonshots, or what were some revolutionary ideas which made Flutter Flutter? So I'll just get started and yeah. So basically I am dividing my talk into 3 stories, and each story is going to have one hero. So our first story is of browser wars, as we also always know that Microsoft and Netscape were fighting for market share early on, and Microsoft won. Basically, Microsoft had a lot of market share around 2002 and 2003. And that's when Netscape was trying to build a new language and JavaScript came into being. Brendan H is said to have built JavaScript in like 10 days. That are some of the speculations. But what is definitely sure is JavaScript kind of language which glues HTML, CSS together and provides a consistent experience across the web came into being. So so JavaScript had its own problems and there were some performance issues, and there was a team called V8 team in Denmark which was made by Google to tackle these problems. So they wanted browsers to be faster and pages to be loaded faster, and that is why they created a V8 team which was meant to build a core engine for JavaScript. So what this team did was they made a browser which was running 56 times faster than the current version of Internet Explorer. That was possible because of Lars Bak and his team working towards creating a virtual machine which runs very fast. So on same day when the Chrome was launched, V8 was also launched, and rest we know is history. Chrome has been gaining and gaining more and more popularity. Definitely there are more reasons such as Chrome being more faster, more secure, but this is definitely one of the reasons why Chrome came into being. Now you might be thinking, where is Flutter in all this? Give me a minute, I am just coming to that. So there were some crazy Chrome experiments going on around 20 times. Few of them you will come to know in the future talks. So these Chrome experiments got which Gayathri is talking about, and WebAssembly, where they said that building delightful applications for web is difficult with JavaScript, and they wanted to develop a new language called Dash to replace JavaScript, which was actually later renamed to Dart. And Dart is a client-optimized language, and the incredible part about it is it can compile down, not being interpreted, but really compile down to machine code across different architectures, ARM, ARM64, Intel, and JavaScript. So that's what. And compared to the JavaScript, Dart had shown significant performance improvements, and it looked like Chrome team may do Dart plus Chrome in a browser only. But then finally on 25th, 2015, they said that we have decided not to integrate Dart into Chrome. So basically, we know how Dart came into being as a competitor to JavaScript, but it was designed to be a platform where everything, which can run on every architecture. So this has been the story, but this story will not end on a bad note. There was a new experiment called Sky, which was going around 2015, and that is what graduated to Flutter in 2017 early alpha version. So we came to know about Dart and how important is Dart to make Flutter run on different applications and on the machine code directly. The second influence on Flutter was of best practices using React. So Jordan Walk and Pete Hunt and their whole team built React around 2011. Now there is one very good talk where Pete Hunt talks about reducing coupling and increasing cohesion. We always want in our softwares to have more cohesion among connected components while more coupling among unconnected. Flutter widgets mixed with the display logic, CSS, as well as the business logic merged into one application. The second part was components over templates. If anyone has experience with Backbone or Handlebars or Django, Jinja, we know that it's so difficult to use templates and insert content into the display markup. But with components, it becomes very easy. You are using the language to its full extent, either it's JavaScript or Dart, to show the content, fill up the content in the display. The third thing which React introduced was being like the concept of state, which was there before also, but React gave it a modern look, and that is quite related to what Dijkstra says. So Dijkstra, we know, is a very big scientist, and he said that it is difficult for us developers to think in terms of events going from one step to another, but it is easy to think of us as static programs where the state is changing between like there are snapshots between two different states. So what this means is basically we think of a state. Say suppose this is an Amazon web page where we have two books to be bought and one is saved for later, and this is what is the state going to look like. There are cart items, there are cart items count, and this is what is the whole state. If we add one more book to our three number of books, we just have to change the state, and basically all the UI gets updated automatically. What React did under the hood was manage this using virtual DOMs, which is actually outside the scope of this talk. But basically there is a copy of DOMs where it manages smartly what all the changes are to be done, and this makes these JavaScript engines very fast. All this stuff can be done in 60 FPS. Now, React bringing all these things together spiked its popularity a lot, along with Vue.js, which used similar kind of reactive mechanism to develop components. So as we can see, React and Vue both are gaining popularity, and so this is what React got into the system, which are nicely coupling and cohesion. Second is this merging markup and display, and the third part is actually using a stateful way of reactive way of developing widgets. The final aspect is Sky. Sky was an experimental project led by Eric Seidel. Their vision was to actually build a best way to develop for mobile, and you should sometime find some videos of 2016, 2015 early, where they are running the Flutter on mobile for the first time. And this is what they said are the problems. Mobile development is slow, we need two teams, and it's difficult to provide a solution which is custom and where the development is fast. So this is what they proposed, is as to building their own runtime system. So runtime system is something, some kind of a compiler you can say, or a system which actually runs the program. So building our own runtime systems helps us run the program on any architecture. It works everywhere. And the second thing which Sky project did was inverting the iceberg. If you are using React Native or Ionic, it is very difficult to see what is going on under the hood. So like if Ionic and Cordova frameworks, there is your app, which is native code. And then there are in between connectors such as web views, which connect with the canvas, which is the actual phone pixels. So in native apps, there are OEM widgets which connect to canvas, and you don't actually get access to the bare canvas. In React Native also, there is a JavaScript bridge. This is better than, of course, Ionic, etc. But there is still a JavaScript bridge which interprets in real time and runs it on canvas, providing not so good experience compared to direct on the canvas. So we have widgets, which is a part of our app, and we directly access the canvas, which is the actual phone or actual screen pixels. So this is what Sky project got into the fold, that is inverting the iceberg. What that means is, you can, if you go to the Flutter source code and you showing the content on the screen, which is done in C++ engine. So it is pretty incredible that we have this access to all the made functions in Dart itself, which is not the case. So another thing which they did was making it pixel perfect with Android and iOS navigations. And these are the three top things. We talked about how web was evolving and which led to birth of Dart. We talked about how React brought a new way of developing apps using stateful method, declarative markup, and mixing the markup and logic. we finally talked about early experiments by Chrome team, Sky team to run the code directly on the metal or directly on the architecture. And this is what we come up to, Flutter, bringing it all together with its co-founder being Eric Seidel and current program manager being Tim Snape. So it has Dart, which is best of both worlds. It runs just in time, just like how the JavaScript is interpreted on the web. You just click Command S and the function just runs again. It's also ahead of time compilation like C++, which can give you performant compiled APKs. There are strong types. It is easier to learn. React bot, display logic and markup coupled. Everything is declarative. Declarative means that we can make the state and the state changes over time. And then it got the concept of composition over inheritance. So as you can see in Flutter, widgets are made up of bigger widgets, which are made up of bigger widgets, and extending or implementing an interface is something which is less than over composition. The final thing was the vision of Flutter to build a best way to develop for mobile, which is what got us together to see the Flutter popularity. I don't know if this is a good judge of Flutter because Stack Overflow questions usually show that there is a lot of chaos, but Flutter developer community has a lot of questions. This is just 2018. And a very interesting tweet by Tim Snape saying that the last quarter has seen explosive growth in India in particular, which is the #1 country for Flutter users. So thank you to all the developers. We have around 5 lakh developers using Flutter each month, and there is no doubt that it is going to be more and more going ahead. So these are the series of moonshots which led to Flutter being Flutter. I actually went a bit faster because of the scarcity of time, but I really wanted us to know that if we are going to use Flutter, we better know that what is the foundation behind Flutter and what is it is built on top of and what is it inspired from. So that's it. Thank you so much. Thanks Gaurav and GeekyAnts team for inviting me. And yeah, I'm ready for any questions you have.
Thanks, Mayur, for giving such a insightful information about the Flutter and how does it evolve. It's always good to know about your past and history, like what leads to this, the invention of such a great framework, such a great technology. So thanks a lot. Right now, I don't think there's any questions from the viewer side. So maybe at the end, we will have a Q&A round session again and we can discuss about it.
Sure.
So the next speaker for the day is Vikrant, who will be giving a talk about Flutter Web and the under the hood. So Vikrant, can you just share your screen and get started with it? Vikrant, I think you are on mute.
Yes, so hello everyone, my name is Vikrant and I work in GeekyAnts, and it's been a year since I am working in Flutter and doing all those experiments and researches, and a big thanks to GeekyAnts for providing such a great platform for the developers to share their thought process, and also a great thanks to the GeekyAnts team for organizing the Flutter Meetup. So let's jump to what I will be sharing here. Just hold on a second. Yeah. So in this talk, I will take you to the journey of how Flutter Web works under the hood, and how the Flutter Web is basically doing all those, creating all those widgets, rendering all those widgets, and laying out all those things. So let's start. So the old days of development are gone. In the past, where we were used to write different set of code and used to run on different platforms just for the same product. But with Flutter, we have the same single code base, which we can run on different platform for the same product. And Flutter made it possible with the help of Dart. And one of the interesting and trending topics these days is Flutter Web. So before directly jumping into how Flutter Web basically works, how it lay out its widgets, create those widgets, and finally paints them on the screen, I would first like to discuss a little bit about how a browser works, so that in the final we can basically correlate how the Flutter Web engine is basically working with the browser. So let's see. So this is how basically a browser architecture looks like. You can divide it into three parts. The first one is user interface, the second one is browser engine, and the third one is the rendering engine. So in the first part, user interface, all those things that are visible on the web page, you can include those things. And the browser engine basically acts as a bridge, and it supplies all those resources from the user interface to the rendering engine. And the rendering engine basically compiles HTML, CSS, and JS things, and then finally generates the layouts through it, and then finally paints them on the screen. This is how basically the rendering engine, this is the basic steps that the rendering engine follows. And the moment you hit a particular URL, your web browser loads a particular file. And this file is basically in the form of binary streams. And this file contains the content type in its header, and it contains the form like CSS, HTML, JavaScript, and plain or XML. And the one important thing to note here is that the browser only knows these things, HTML, CSS, JS, and these things which I have written down. But the browser does not know anything about that. And after the binary file is converted into the corresponding files like HTML, CSS related to the content type, the browser basically starts the rendering of those web pages onto the screen. And it first starts with the creation of trees. So first the browser basically go through the HTML page, extract out all those HTML nodes, and then create a DOM tree. And then in the similar fashion, it extract out all those CSS properties and then create the CSS home tree. And then in the end, it creates the render tree. And the render tree is the combination of both DOM and CSS home tree. And this is the lower level representation of all those things that are going to be displayed on the web page. And then the browser goes through the layout operation in which it calculates all those coordinates, position, and all those mathematical stuffs. And then after it finally paints them on the screen. And sometimes this paint operation is also divided into two parts. The first one is paint and the second one is composition. And the main purpose of both these operations is to perform the rasterization or more refining of those layers which are supplied by the rendering operation and the layout operation. And this whole process is known as the critical rendering path. And till now we have all those basic knowledge like how the browser is parsing those binary files, converting it to the corresponding types, and how is it like going through the DOM creation of the trees from the DOM CSS render, and then how it is performing the layout operation, the painting operation, and the in the end it's painting everything on the screen. And now we can relate this rendering process with the Flutter Web engine. So now let's jump to the Flutter. So here we have Flutters, and the Flutter is basically divided into two parts. The first one is the engine, and the second one is framework. And the framework consists of all of the libraries, widgets, and rendering things. And the engine part is totally independent of the framework and contains the Skia for 2D graphic rendering. It also contains the virtual machine for the Dart thing, and both of these layers are basically joined by the Dart UI layer. And this is how the Flutter architecture and Flutter Web architecture looks like both simultaneously. And as you can see in the green color, both these framework are almost the same. All those things that are present in the Flutter architecture in the green box, as you can see, the material, widgets, rendering, Cupertino, animation, painting, these things are also present in the Flutter Web. And all those things that are present in the Flutter Web engine, like service protocol, Dart VM management, most importantly, this platform channels, this text layout, framework, and composition. These things are also present in the Flutter Web engine. But what's the difference between them if these things are same? So the difference lies between the implementation of the Flutter Web engine, and Flutter Web engine basically contains more or less the libraries or APIs that convert the Dart code to the corresponding HTML CSS file. And let's see, because till now, as already explained previously, the browser does not know anything about Dart. So that's why the Flutter Web engine requires different set of tools to compile that Dart code to the corresponding files. And this is how the Flutter Web architecture looks like in more detail. As you can see in the green colored box, we have this Flutter Web engine, which contains this Dart2JS compiler, and it also contains some libraries or APIs that convert those Dart code to the HTML, CSS, and JS files, which are more understandable to the browser. And and all those your Dart code through this web engine and compile those your Dart code to the corresponding file. So let us go through these different stages of compilation of Dart code. So yes, here we have your Dart code in this first stage, and it goes to the Flutter Web engine. And your Flutter Web engine parses to the Dart code for HTML and CSS. And then in the final stage, it goes through the Dart2JS compiler, which converts the Dart code to the JavaScript and finally serves it to the browser. And the browser basically perform those processes like creation of trees, then finally painting them on the thing on the web page. But most importantly, how it paints, let's see. But first, let us see why do we have this extra layer as the Dart2JS compiler present in the Flutter Web engine. So as the Wikipedia page says that the Dart compiled JS code can run much faster than the handwritten JS code. And even the official Dart docs also say that the Dart team is currently working on making the common scenarios of JS to run faster in case of Dart compiled JS code. And so right now we know that Dart compiled JS code can run much faster as compared to the JS written code in most of the common scenarios. So we finally have the Dart compiled code corresponding to the HTML, CSS, and JS files. Now let's see how is the browser basically painting all these files. So each and every time the Flutter basically renders the UI on the web page, it goes different series of steps, and the most important steps are, one of them is the creation of widgets. So this first step, the creation of widgets, is particularly handled by the framework layer actually, and the this layer, this operation is totally independent of what is going to be totally independent of the Flutter Web engine and the Flutter Web browser. And after this creation of widgets, it creates some pictures and supply to the Flutter Web engine. And the Flutter Web engine creates the layouts through those layers and do some mathematical stuff like calculating the coordinates, calculating the position, and calculating these things according to the screen size. And finally, it paints those things in the form of HTML, CSS, and canvas. And those things or layers which can be expressed in the form of HTML, CSS are wrapped in the HTML, CSS tag, and those things which cannot be are basically wrapped in the canvas tag. And that's why and this implementation, you can say DOM canvas implementation, is what we see in case of Flutter Web architecture. And let me show you practically how is this laying out. So we have this Flutter website which is provided by the Flutter community, and I'm going to do inspect element here. And here in the body tag, you can see we have this Flutter glass pane which is covering the whole of the canvas. And if you just open all these nested tags, keep on opening those nested tags, finally we have this canvas. And if you see, if I hover over this canvas tag, it is it is like mapping this particular tag to the left of the dashboard. And in the end, it actually these all these nested tags from the like a top view, it looks like this. We have this glass pane, then scene host, then we have this flutter scene. These things are wrapped inside this flutter scene, these tags particularly. And in the end, we have this paragraph canvas, and finally these things which are wrapped inside the HTML tags. But now most asked question is, why do we have these so many nodes? Like, why do we have these so many tags inside this particular DOM tree? So the reason is that whenever the Flutter is render a particular UI while painting, while it is performing the painting operation, it goes through the creation of the render tree, and then the render tree basically creates the composite layer, and the composite layer contains all of these information like offset, clip, transform, these things, and finally it gives to the Flutter Web engine. And it's the duty of this Flutter Web engine to convert these particular layers corresponding to the DOM canvas tag. Like, that's why we were seeing this previously. We have these layers like glass pane, scene host, scene, transform, offset, which were generated by the composite layers. And the final implementation is wrapped inside the HTML CSS tag. And this is the whole process like the Flutter Web engine is doing, from the starting of like creation of widgets, then converting into pictures, then compiling that particular Dart code to the HTML, CSS, and JS file, which also contains all those composite layers, and then it gives it to the Flutter engine, and Flutter engine is inside using the Canvas API provided by the browser. And with the help of this Canvas API, it is painting by wrapping these things inside the HTML tags on the web browser. This is how this whole process works basically. And let's also see after like what are the advantages of Flutter Web. So the Flutter Web basically provides a single code base for all. So if you have less resources or less time, then this is a bigger advantage of using Flutter Web. And it also helps you to focus on more on product rather than platform. And it also support a progress web app. So if you want to increase more user base corresponding to the mobile and web platform, so this is also one of the advantage of Flutter Web. And most of the widgets that are provided by mobile are like also accessible through the web. So it like leads to the it gives advantage to the Flutter for like more portability of code. And if you talk about the plugins, so initially Flutter Web basically has very less plugins which support both the platforms, the Flutter Web and the Flutter for mobile. But as the time progressed and evolved, we have plugins which support both Flutter Web and Flutter Mobile, both of those platforms. And as discussed already, the Flutter Web also gives the opportunity or like saves the time of the user to focus more on product rather than to focus on like running on different platform. And we not only have advantages, we also have disadvantages of Flutter Web. Like actually right now the prototype or engine, you can say, the Flutter Web is basically following is that it is keeping the framework layer, or you can say static, and it is doing all those like compiling thing and these things inside of the Flutter Web engine. Apart from this, the Flutter community also has more, you can say, prototypes in which they can map that particular Dart widgets to the particular those views. so that instead of seeing those nested those tags inside the Chrome DevTools, we could directly map those things. But to increase the portability of code, and instead of adding the browser plugins and so many libraries, that's why the Flutter Web is working on directly painting those things on the screen. And if we talk about the performance of the Flutter Web, yes, it is still under development, because see, the Flutter Web is basically painting all those things on the canvas, and how it is uh, maintaining and keeping those state things up to the mark are still under development, and the Flutter Web has to still evolve in this aspect. And if we talk about the inspect element thing, so yes, the Flutter Web, if you want to debug the Flutter Web through the Chrome Dev tools, then it is not a good idea. Flutter basically provides its own debugging tool. With the help of that, you can debug those widgets and those networking things, or you can say those positioning things. But as compared to the Chrome Dev tools, the Flutter Dev tools has to evolve a lot, as the Chrome Dev tools provide very dynamic and ease of use as compared to the dev tools provided by the Flutter. And if we talk about the search engine optimization, as the Flutter Web is basically painting everything on the screen, if the browser, the crawler basically goes through the web browser, and if it does not find any text there, it does not is not able to extract those text elements, then your web page cannot become search engine optimized. And yes, the routing, I think it is fine, but still there are some caveats in routing, like the hash mark and those things. So the Flutter Web is basically also working on the routing. And if we talk about the code size and the startup time, the reason behind we have such a huge code size in the Flutter Web is that in this stage the Flutter Web is downloading also the code of the Flutter Web engine. That's why the final code size is also increased, and the starter time is also increased. And if we talk about the debugging, the Flutter Web has progressed somewhat in the last few months about the debugging. Like, it has also provided us with the network tag networking debugging in the newest release of the Flutter, and it is also working a lot in improving those aspects. And if we talk about using this Flutter Web as in the production, so I would recommend you to it is fine to use this Flutter Web as for experiments and things, but still you should not use as in the product form. And yes, these are the sources which I have added in the slides, and you can use these resources too if you want to deep dive into more Flutter, or if you want more references to it. And finally, thank you. And if you guys have any doubt, then you can ask.
Thanks, Vikrant, for giving us for explaining the complex Flutter Web architecture into a simple terms. There are a couple of questions from the viewers, so I will be asking you one by one. So the first question is regarding that. The viewer wants to know that Dart compiled Dart.js is sending, right? Will it be faster than the normal JavaScript which we have for regular browsers, like for React framework or for other framework? Like, there's no Dart to JS compilation, right? So how come the Dart to JS is more performant as compared to normal JavaScript?
So basically, not all the scenarios. In few of the scenarios where even if your JavaScript code is also compiled by the browser, and what the Dart2JS is also doing is that it is compiling your JavaScript code into the basic something, and the final result of that compiled code is somewhat faster in most of the scenarios, but not in these scenarios. And the Dart team is also keep on working those things to improve more and more. So like in few of the scenarios, it is fast.
Okay, so it depends on use case to use cases, but not in
Yeah.
every case.
Yeah.
Okay. And the next question is regarding the how. So the text on the Flutter Web is not regular text. Is it drawn on a HTML canvas? If that's the case, wouldn't SEO be affected?
Yeah, that's what I also discussed in one of the disadvantages. Like the Flutter is basically painting those things in the browser. That's why when the crawler basically goes through your web page and it extracts all those text through your web page, and it is how it optimize your web page. But like if you are painting and SEO cannot, your crawler cannot extract those text, so you cannot make your web page that much search engine optimized.
Okay. And is the Flutter team working on smoothing the SEO thing? Like right now, it's not that great. So, is there any chances that the search engine optimization will be smoothened by the Flutter team, or they are not working right now and they are working on some other stuff?
Yeah, so as I am not working with the Flutter team there, but yes, as they are saying that they are working totally on all of the aspects that they have issues, they have surely like queued up all those issues, and one by one those issues which have more priority they are working on. So
Okay.
that's why the Flutter Web is still in beta version.
All right, and I guess the last question is like, does Flutter support server-side rendering, SSR?
SSR. In which way? Like, if you can explain this more.
So right now, what's happening is Dart JavaScript, the Dart to JS compiler is shipping with the Java is shipping with the web app, and then all the DOM elements are rendered when the Java when the browser starts executing the compiled JavaScript, right? But with the SSR, what happens like the web page is already been served from the server, so there's no all the compilation happens at the server side, and the complete web page is built at the server side, and they just ship it through the network. So does SSR server-side rendering is supported in Flutter Web right now?
I think not as such, but that thing even I have to look up into.
Okay, and I guess we are running out of time. So maybe at the end, or there are a few more questions regarding the Flutter Web. Maybe at the end of the talk, after everyone speaks out, then we can again take a another small Q&A session, and we can get back to you all the questions which the viewers have.
Yeah, sure.
So going to the next speaker. So the next speaker is Gayathri. She will be giving talk about the Flutter PWA. So Gayathri, you can share your screen and start your talk.
Okay. And hi friends, this is Gayathri Devi Srinivasan, and I am a training software engineer at GeekyAnts, and this is my Twitter handle. Today the session will be for a progressive web application using Flutter Web. And let us take a situation of when I ask you to open a Google Maps on phone, which will you prefer the most while going for a web browser and searching a place, or going to a mobile application and search a place? Of course, 90 to 95% of people will prefer to work on mobile applications. They think mobile applications are more user friendly. In the same way, here PW plays a major role. And first of all, what is a PWA? PWA is just a native, similar to a native mobile application. And why to choose Flutter for developing a PWA? First of all, for developing a PWA, before a web developer has to work upon on more steps like registering a service worker, creating manifest.json. But now Flutter made it easy for you. In Flutter Web, you have a default call for registering your service worker in order to create your web application as a PWA. And here is my code structure. Here I have my Flutter Web build index.html file. Here I have a service worker script. Usually service worker is a thing which runs scripts for you in the background for a browser, and a manifest.json will holds the information which will contains the information for an application on how it should appear on a mobile app, and the service worker will help us cache and serve the cached files, and which will provide an uninterrupted user experiences, and also data web. You take the proxy web. Now
Gayathri, I think your voice
I'll do a demo of proxy web application. Now
Gayathri, we are not able to hear you.
hello.
Now we can hear you. Continue.
Yeah. Okay. And this is the demo of PWA in my mobile application. We have the option to add our applications to our home screen as PWA. And the application is getting added to my screen. We have a progressive app launching in our mobile with a splash screen. And from here, I can able to navigate to my site. And why to choose Flutter Web for PWA? It reduces half of your time in development, and it reduces build costs, and also it is easy to deploy and develop a PWA using Flutter Web. But because by default all the codes were generated for you. And what are the main benefits of PWA? Why we need PWA? Because it is reliable, it is faster, it enables fast loading, makes more the user more engaging by using push notification, and it is also integrated in the way by providing all capabilities of your native apps. And this is how PWA is transforming the publication world. And
Gayathri, I think the last part was missed because of the poor internet connection. But anyway, so thanks a lot, Gayathri, for giving this short and crisp that talk about the PWA, and you also showcase how. Sorry, you are saying something, Gayathri.
I just said about thank you.
Okay. Thanks for showing a real demo as well for the PW and how we can easily build and deploy our applications. Thanks a lot, Gayathri. Uh,
Yeah.
any, uh, uh, I don't think right now there's any question from the viewer side. So we'll move towards our next speaker for the day. Hassan will be talking about the Velocity X and how does the Velocity X is helping the development of the UI side of the Flutter. So, Hassan, can you share your screen and get started with? Uh, Hassan, I think you are on mute.
Okay. So are you able to see my screen?
Yeah, I'm able to see the screen.
So, okay. Hi guys. My name is Hasnen, and I run a YouTube channel called Training Codes. I make YouTube videos on building Flutter apps. And before moving forward, I just wanted to thank GeekyAnts and the entire team for organizing this meetup in this situation, so that even the community get more about in this situation also about Flutter and all that stuff. So yeah, this talk is all about the package named VelocityX and how you use it to make your UI or your productivity faster when it compares to the normal way of Flutter coding. So yeah, so the first question comes in is, why do we really need VelocityX when we have a high performance Flutter app? So when it comes to a performance or behind the screen, VelocityX works perfectly same or perfectly fine or exactly same with the normal Flutter code and VelocityX code. So there are a few reasons why we need VelocityX when we build our project. So very first thing is this VelocityX is a package given by or written by Pawan Kumar, the GDE for Flutter. And he has been following all the material design rules and guidelines for developing this particular package. So yeah, when we use a package, it has a full support of material design guidelines over there. Right now, when it comes to the another reason why we need to use VelocityX is it is a utility first framework. So we can make our custom designs, and you can fasten your productivity with using the built-in widgets, and you can customize those built-in widgets with passing different kinds of properties on it. So I will talk about how to pass properties and how to create or how to customize the widget. Right now, it has a many components, or we call this as a widget in the Flutter. It has a rich set of components in that library. It has selectable text you can use, or you can just go ahead and select that text directly. Where in Flutter there is no way to select text. You have to write a code for that. But when you use the VelocityX package, you get that inbuilt, right? You got a rich text. Now, the most important about VelocityX for me is that you have to write a less line of code. So when it comes to less line of code, it means that you don't have to you don't have to keep nesting your widgets, and you don't need to make your code formatting looks ugly, right? So I guess the writing less code in the terms of lines, it's a great about VelocityX. One more thing, or the important thing of VelocityX is you get a responsive designs without configurations at all. So when you want to make a responsive designs without VelocityX or from a scratch, you need to do some configurations. You need to make some configuration files which will detect on which screen you are. So that particular configurations will return the dimensions of your screen, and according to that you will change your UI. Right now, if you're coming from a web background, or if you're coming from iOS as an iOS developer, then I guess you can easily cope up with the VelocityX, because it is highly inspired from Tailwind CSS and Swift UI. Right, we will look on that how exactly the VelocityX looks like. And yeah, the other most important thing is you can use VelocityX on the Flutter widgets itself. So you can use the combinations of Flutter widgets plus VelocityX widgets, right? So let's take a look how we can use VelocityX inside our project. So as I said, it's a project. I mean, it's a package. So we need to have a dependency into our pubspec.yaml file. So here is the pubs.yaml file, and the current version for VelocityX is 0.3.4, right? So once you go ahead and write this and you make your pubspec YAML to get the package, it will download this dependency, right? And cool, we are ready to go. Now, just take a look on this page. This is the page which is a kind of huge page into the whole slides, right? So how we use a VelocityX into our project. So, okay, if you want to center a text, and how do we center a text normally in our Flutter widgets is we will write first a text, we'll use a text widget, and then we'll wrap that text into a with a center widget, right? But now if you use a VelocityX, you can just go ahead and do that in a single line of code. So I have something called center here. I am a center in a single line. Then what I will do is I will just use a center method, right, to just make my code or make my line center of the screen, right? Now, I need a material design card into my project. So yes, I can do that in a single line of code. I don't need to nest my UI again and again for getting some cool designs, right? So, I just add one more thing or one more extension at the end of my, if you're able to see my cursor, at the end of my make, I use card.make. So I will I will make you understand when and how to use these extensions, what is the flow or how it works exactly, right? So now this will give me a cool material card in a single line of code, right? Now, when it comes to the getting a blank material container, okay, I need a 40 pixels material container. So what I will do, I will just use a square box, and then I'll pass the size, how much I want. So it may be 40, 50, whatever you want. So according to your need, you're going to pass your height, right? Height and width for that box. And then you're going to say card.makeCenter. So this will make a blank material container, and then it will center your material container into an UI. So you can see you don't need to nest your widgets again and again, and you can use this into a single line of code, and then you're ready to go. Now, you want to play with the height and width. So how you can do that? So, when it comes to making or giving something in a percentage way, you always have to take the dimensions of the screen, and then you have to do some calculation, and then you should pass that thing to your pass that exact number to make it work as in a percent way. So if you just take a look on the first text, give me width and height. So what I will do, I will just use WH, that means it is width and height, and then I'll pass 20 pixels and 10 pixels. So this extension method will give me the width and height of 20 and 10 pixels along with that. Now I need a width into a percentage. So what I will do, I will just say W8. So this means that it's going to give me a width of 8%. So why I need to pass my context is because I need to provide my context to calculate the dimensions of my screens, right? So these dimensions of my screens will be calculated behind the curtains, and it will return the 8% width. In the same way, it will return me the 8% of height. Right now, let's talk about how we can make your UI scrollable with a single line of code. So when it comes to a normal Flutter code, we need to use list view, or we need to use single child scroll view, right? And many other stuff we have like that, a sliver appar and sliver nested scroll view, right? But now, when you use VelocityX into your project, you just need to use one extension method called scroll vertical, right? You can just go ahead and make your widget scrollable in a one click, right? Now, you can see that there is a bit way of coding which looks similar to a Swift UI style code. So the Swift UI looks something like this, right? So if I want to make something, okay, let's talk about what is VStack, AddStack, and ZStack. So VStack is nothing but, it works in the similar way of column when it comes to a normal Flutter widget. So VStack will exactly work same as in column. And you have all the properties what columns has, right? You have alignment, main axis alignment, you have cross axis alignment, and many other stuff. But if you want to make that scrollable vertical way, you will just use scroll vertical, and that whole column of widget can easily scroll. So if you just take a look on my screen, I'm able to scroll this, right? So this is how similar it works. Now, the horizontal stacks works in a similar way of row in Flutter. It also has all the properties what it has into your normal row of Flutter widget, right? Now the Z stack works similar way in a normal stack which works into a Flutter widgets. So you can just lap the widgets on each other by using by just putting them into the first in first out way. So all these things, accept things as in a list of widgets. So you can see I have to use the square brackets, and then I'll pass in my all widgets between them. So now this is all about how you can use the VelocityX. So now let's take a look. What is this text.make and what is this card.make, and when exactly we need to use this? Looks a bit confusing, but when you just go ahead and take a look on this flow, you will get to know and you will be clear how you can use this into your project, or your confusion will get removed. So now I have something called a widget, right? Then on the second spot, I have something called type of widget. So then I have something called properties, and then have something called completer. So here is an example which shows the above flow. I have a widget that is nothing but a string, right? I have a widget, and then I pass what type of widget I want. So I will pass, I want to make this widget as in text. So I will pass dot text, right? Now, properties are nothing but a kind of similar way of CSS properties. If you want to style your text widget with color, padding, and other stuff, with height, font width, and other stuff. So normally the properties are nothing but the CSS way of styling your widget, right? And this make is the completer method, which will say your compiler that this is the completion of one entire line, and you need to make a text widget with these properties. Properties may have color and many other stuff. So you can see that there is a clean way of flow. First, you need to have a widget, then you need to have a type of widget, then you pass the properties, and then you make a completion of that widget, right? So now over here, the another important thing, is you can pass the normal Flutter widgets also. So if instead of this, I am centered in single line, I can use the text widget of Flutter, and I can use, or I can make it I can make it work in a similar way. So there is no restriction of using, when you're using VelocityX, there is no restriction of using your normal Flutter widgets. You can make a combination of your Flutter widgets and you can easily use it, right? Now, there are many other stuff into our VelocityX. You know, first thing is, the responsive widget for mobile and web screen. Now, when we talk about the Flutter Web and when we talk about the different dimensions of mobile size, and if you want to make your productivity faster, and if you want to make your project ready in a few days or few months, you can just go ahead and grab this VelocityX, which will give you a huge or a rich amount of flexible way to make your app responsive, because you get many more things to make your web or your mobile app responsive, because there are a couple of widgets of which take care of your different dimensions of your screen. There is a time limitation, so I cannot show you all the working of all the widgets, but yeah, there is a documentation app for this VelocityX. You can just go ahead and take a look. You can read the document and you can implement into your Flutter project. Now, we have, as we see, we have text, selectable text, right, and a rich text. So you can do whatever you want with the rich text. You can, in a single line, you can have, a kind of different colored text. So I need green, yellow, blue. I have a text called green, yellow, blue. I actually can make them green, yellow, blue if I have a rich text. Then I have a box and then animated box, a way similar it works as an animated container into a Flutter. Then I have inbuilt shimmer. Shimmers are nothing but the loading screens. So you don't need to write a code when you want to make a loading screen, which is nothing but replicating your actual UI into a loading screen. But you get an inbuilt shimmer when you use VelocityX. So of course it is going to save your time when you are writing a project or when you're writing a code. Now we have a kind of two types of list. So this is nothing but the ordered list and unordered list, what we have in the web. So you can directly use the numeric list, which will be having 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you can see this these dots. These dots are nothing but the this list which I have been implementing. Then it has an opacity widget, and it also has a transform widget. You can know more about this on the documentation app. Then we have something called flex, which is kind of similar to how our CSS flex work, which has been VX inline block, and horizontal stack, vertical stack, and Z stack, which we already talked about that. So these are the rich widgets of the VelocityX. And now I'm going to show you one cool thing about this presentation is that this presentation is written into a VelocityX, and it just took 326 lines of code to make this presentation slides. So, in couple of minutes, I would say not a couple of minutes, but in 30 to 40 minutes, I was able to write a code and make this full Mac OS Hummingbird app. So you can see on my screen, this is the Hummingbird app, and this has been written into the Flutter and VelocityX. So you can just go ahead and grab this code directly from the GitHub. I will just provide you the link, right? Now, when it comes to responsiveness, let's take a look. I have built my portfolio using VelocityX, which is live right now somewhere over here. Okay, before going to the demo of my portfolio website, let's take a look. The huge screen or the longest screen of this presentation was this, right? The quick way of using VelocityX. So you can say this is the kind of bigger screen right over here. And, we'll just take a look how it looks like into a code. So here is my fourth slide, right? And you can see the actual line of code, number of lines of codes are just 53. So I would just take as in 50. So in a 50 line of code, I just made my presentation slide quickly, right? So yeah, you can organize your code so nicely over here. You can see there is no nesting of widget over here. You can easily read your code. So this is my vertical stack, the original content, and I can easily read my code into a single line. There is no nesting anymore, and this looks really clean for me as my personal experience. I'm saying it looks more clean. So now let's see how does this exactly looks like when it becomes a responsive web app with the VelocityX. So you can see I have opened this into my phone and it gives a different dimension. So if I change it, I can easily, make it work perfectly fine. So now you can see that I can have a different dimensions, and then I can resize my Flutter Web. This is actually a Flutter Web, and I can easily resize my code, and then resize my window, and yeah, VelocityX works perfectly fine. So you have a couple of examples. The first example is the Hummingbird macOS app, and we have the web app as well built in VelocityX. So yeah, I would recommend you to go to the website of velocityx.dev, where you can just find the documentation which is being ongoing, and you can just read the documentation over here, and you are ready to go with the VelocityX. And yeah, one more thing, this is the open source project, so feel free to contribute for VelocityX as well as the VelocityX app. Yeah. Now, I guess that's all from my side. If I have any questions, we can just go ahead and have a small Q&A.
Thanks, Hasnen, for giving this beautiful insight about the VelocityX and showing us different use cases of the VelocityX and how it supports the declarative way of using the styles of the widget, which removes your complex and ugly nested widgets. Yes, we do have a couple of questions for you. Like, first question is like, does it have any performance impact when rendering it, or as compared to your?
As I said, it highly or strictly follows the material guidelines, so there is no performance issues. It works similar way how it should work with the normal Flutter app. But yeah, if you're making a web app, then until and unless you force it to use the Skia, there will be a laggy. But when we force our build to use the Skia, then yeah, there will be a less performance lag over there. But for mobile app, I guess it works totally fine.
Okay, and what about the interaction? Like whenever you build a UI, so there must be interactions involved, right? User interaction. So how do we add those events, listeners, to the in the declarative way? Like what is the syntax of it? Or it's just suppose the styling itself right now. It doesn't support any of the on tap or anything on press.
No, it has an on tap. So you have a click extensions on the. So if you want a container to be clickable, then you can use the click extension on it, and then yeah, you can have the interaction over there. Right.
Okay, and so
as I said, this is a huge library, and everything is not possible to show in the one small presentation. But yeah, it has a huge amount of collectivity of widgets. You can just explore the library, and yeah, you can use. There are so many extensions. You can make it as interactive.
Okay. Sure, we will definitely explore the official documentation of it and get to know better of it. Another question from the viewer is, what is the scope of the unit testing? How do we do the unit testing in VelocityX as compared to the normal widget testing?
Yeah, so like the way we do the Flutter testing, right? We have a test file, and then we pass the unit cases over there. In the same way, we can just go ahead and do that. So there is no difference between using the normal Flutter and VelocityX. It is a package, right? So you can just go ahead and use the same Flutter way to test your applications.
Okay, so it doesn't have any additional syntax we don't have to write. It's the same. Only at the UI level we have to write because it gives you more freedom in writing
Yeah.
the declarative sentence. But at rest of the things like integration with the state management or integrating the unit test cases, it doesn't have any impact over it.
No, exactly.
Okay. I guess now we can open the Q&A session for all the developers, all the speakers. So I'll go one by one. So, Gayathri, there is one question about the PWA. Does the PWA supported only in Chrome, or it has a support for Firefox also, the Flutter Web PWA?
No, it supports for all the browsers. I have
Okay.
tested it.
Okay, you have tested it in all the browsers,
Yeah.
including the Firefox and like a Brave browser also.
Yeah, it's working on it.
Okay. Vikrant, the question for you is regarding the Flutter Angular Dart. Have you explored the Angular Dart and how does it differ from the Flutter Web?
Yeah, so basically, like Angular is another front-end framework, and you can also integrate Dart with it. And I think it was an old library for doing that conversion of Dart to the Angular actually. So uh, that is how much I have explored how it is the Angular Dart library which basically works. And I think Angular is right now not much in hype as compared to the like other front-end frameworks. And if we have like Flutter, which also has that Dart and there, then why Angular Dart actually?
All right. And there is another question regarding in Flutter Web. How do we share the code on social media?
Oh, so
We have plugins for the web mobile app. So
Yeah.
do we have something like similar to it, or how does it we do it?
Yeah. So like for the normal mobile application, we have those plugins which help us to share the data in social media. But currently, the we I think that particular plugin does not support both the Flutter Web and the mobile platform actually. And I think other developers and Flutter team is currently working on it. But the main priority for the Flutter Web right now is to make all those things and mapping first stable actually in Flutter Web and simultaneously progress with the plugins too. So currently these things are in progress and they are working there.
Okay, and last, I think you have. I think is it okay to use Flutter Web for the production level web application? I think you have already answered this thing.
Yeah.
Right now
Yes.
it's not that good for production level, but you can obviously play around and explore, experiment with it, and develop the
Yes.
POC.
Yeah.
Uh, and one question is regarding one of the question is for us what is the market adoption for the Flutter within India and international markets from your experience? So as per my experience, like Flutter is increasing. The most of the startups uh, are moving towards like whenever they want to build an application, they select Flutter rather over the React Native because Flutter has more flexibility and in terms of performance it's slightly better because the animation thing and the frame per second which Flutter provides it's a bit efficient as compared to React Native, and internationally also the Flutter market is growing. But as one of the tweet by the Tim Smith says that India is one of the largest adopter of the Flutters, like around 5 lakh all over the world, around 5 lakh developers are using Flutter on monthly basis. So it's the as a community and as the industry wise, Flutter is largely accepted by everyone. Any more questions? I guess that was a pretty good talk about different. We got to know about the Flutter Web architecture, how we can use the VelocityX in our day-to-day project, and how it simplifies our code base and remove all the ugly nested code from our code base, and start using the declarative way, which I really like, and I will definitely explore more over to it. There's another question from one of the viewers that any books to learn Dart. I guess I need to cross check. Like I generally prefer the official doc itself, which is well defined uh, and it is in detail. So we can go with the official documentation. And speakers, do you have any recommendation regarding the book which the who is learning the Dart should use?
I think official docs of Dart are fine. Actually, they are up to date, and all those things what comes new in Dart are those things up to date. But in case of book, they come and they are not actually up to date with all those features that come new in the Dart versions actually. So Dart docs are better recommended, I think.
Okay, and Mayur, do you have any point of view?
Yeah, I also agree with Vikrant that docs would be the best way to go. Definitely, there are some Medium articles by Flutter Community. Pooja Bhome, GeekyAnts has done some wonderful articles so far. I think the way the Flutter is growing and the speed with which new features are coming, I think the blogs and articles are the best way to go along with the official documentation.
Yeah, so I also agree. Like the viewer, you can subscribe to the Flutter Community Medium channel where they regularly updates all the latest articles which are happening in and around the Flutter community, and you get lot of in detail knowledge, like not just overview but in detail. So and Gayathri, when you were working on the PW, did you use any references which you like to share?
Uh, I have just referred a blog of understanding Flutter. Just I have and why I have referred Pavan Kumar.
Sure. Can you share the link so that I can share with the viewers if you have right now?
Yeah, okay. Yeah, okay.
And Hasnen, I would like to know, like, is there any open app which is built using VelocityX, or I know it's recently launched, the package is recently launched, but is there any application which we can use and explore and get to know more about the VelocityX? Is there any open source project available?
Yeah, you can directly go ahead and use the VelocityX documentation app itself. It has a PWA, it has the web app. So you can explore that app itself.
Okay, sure. We'll definitely go to the website and look, because it's open source, so we can definitely go into and check its code.
Yeah.
And guys, and all the speakers, I kindly request you to share your slides so that we can share those slides with the viewers, and they can also get more insight if they missed anything during our talk.
Sure, Gaurav.
And do you have anything else to talk about or discuss? Otherwise, it was a pretty good talk for the day, and we can go to the closing notes.
So yeah, I'm sharing the slides which I have made using VelocityX from the GitHub. So I'm sharing the GitHub link. If viewers want to explore VelocityX and wants to see how exactly we can code VelocityX and structure the code, they can just go ahead and check out the GitHub project of these slides.
Sure. You just share across to me. I'll share it with you.
I'm directly sharing on the. Okay, so it's not allowing me to share directly on the. I will share it over here.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Okay. So at the end, I would like to on a closing note, I really enjoy the today's talk and get a lot of insight about the new frameworks and how the internal architecture of the Flutter Web works, and plus get to know the history about the Flutter and Dart, like how it evolved, how the JavaScript was evolved, and how then Dart and Flutter came into picture. And I'll definitely explore the PWAs also, because PWA is in demand. So definitely the PWA is on my list. Thanks a lot, all the speakers, for taking out time and giving so much knowledge and sharing your knowledge with the community and helping the community grow. It was a great day, and hopefully in the next meetup we can again get together and share our knowledge, and hopefully next time it will be face to face rather than on doing a virtual thing. And thanks a lot, viewers, for sticking to us and patiently listening to all the talks. And hopefully we will sharing all the links to you in shortly. In case if you have missed anything, you can still ask them or follow them, follow the speakers on the Twitter handles, and we can get in touch with them as well. So good. Good to see you, speakers, and hope to see you next time.
Thanks, Gaurav.
Yeah, sure, definitely. We would like to collaborate more with GeekyAnts and saying thanks for giving this platform to showcase our things, what we are doing, and showing our knowledge, or sharing our knowledge with the viewers. So thanks a lot for that.
Sure, definitely we'll meet next time as well.
Thanks, Gaurav.
Thanks a lot, everyone.